quorum.
No problem. I was just trying to get the dogs to stop barking.
Are you at home? It looks like you are.
Yeah, I'm at home
today. A beautiful day. Spring on the way.
Sure is.
I love it.
Sarah Lynn, did everyone respond? I cannot hear you.
Ooh. Oh, here comes Sharon.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah, and Ed and Marcus.
That's good. That means we'll have a quorum.
Hey, Rick. Melissa,
Hey,
can you hear me? Melissa.
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. I was making sure the thing was on. Sometimes they have some issues when I first get on. Can you see me?
Yeah. Oh, let me see. I don't see you, but I can hear you.
We can hear you. You can see
what's
Ed.
up, Malcolm?
Hi, Ed.
Let me see what
Hey,
that
how's
is.
it going, Malcolm?
Good.
Let me see if I can get this thing to do right. I don't know why it'd be like this first time I get on. Let me see. Oh, start video. Let me see if they're gonna do something. There we go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I was up under this house and I say, man, I know it's about 5 o'clock. Let me get from up under here. Oh,
Carol, are we good on YouTube?
say it again.
I cannot hear Sarah Lynn.
Well, I wish Kenny come on, stop running his mouth. I'm ready to go.
Sarah Lynn, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you. It's
Hey,
breaking
everybody
up.
doing?
But Sarah Lynn, just give me a thumbs up that you got YouTube. I don't know why I can't hear you.
No, we don't hear her either. I don't. It
I can hear
doesn't
you.
appear to be muted.
Yeah, I had to go to the bottom of my screen and hit video. Let me see. How do you mute this?
All right, Carol, are you good to go on your side?
Yes.
All right, with that, it is 5:01 on March 15th, and we'll call this special called order or special called meeting of the Blythewood Planning Commission to order. Sarah Lynn, did we have, just give me a thumbs up that we had notification sent out? Thank you very much. And we'll go ahead for the minutes and reflect a quorum. Do you want us to, Carol, do you want us to approve the minutes from our last regularly stated meeting, or do you want to do that at the regularly stated meeting?
I believe that was not in the agenda.
That's right.
It was not. So
Yeah, so let's wait.
okay. Purpose of the agenda was to deal with two aspects of the comprehensive plan. And Malcolm, I'll let you take it away.
Well, that's a surprise. if we're ready to go. The situation is that we want to tackle two elements of the rewrite and update every 2 months, which is essentially one a month, and that will take us through until the end of this year, hopefully, to get a first draft completed. And we're joined tonight by Gregory Sprouse, who, as we all know now, is the Research Development Manager, Director at the COG, and has had previous experience helping us compile the previous update on the comprehensive plan, and it's absolutely essential we have all of the resources of the COG brought to bear on the rewrite because of the immense wealth of data they have historically and collect on a regular basis to provide a sound basis for us to plan our way forward and make appropriate decisions for the town. So a lot of the detail work and the actual preparation of the draft will be done by the COG. And Greg, please interrupt me if I say something completely out of place. But our role as the Planning Commission is to guide and provide support for the rewrite and to input those essential things that only the town will know, such as the desires and wishes of the townsfolk to make Blythewood a better, safer place in which to live, to accommodate growth and assist with making everyone's life more prosperous and enjoyable, which is, you know, broadly what this is all about. I think we'll probably touch on the questionnaire that we have prepared that is pretty much ready to hit the internet. It's a shame that Sarah Lynn is not able to communicate with us yet, other than by flags, semaphore, or a sign language. But we can touch on that. She's done a tremendous job in presenting the questionnaire in SurveyMonkey. I hope all of us have had a chance to have a look at that. We can go around the commission table shortly and just confirm that. But for a realistic feedback from the townsfolk, businesses, residents, etc., the input from that survey will provide a very useful set of data and comments that will just help us confirm or question some of the thoughts and ideas that we're currently considering and which the mayor and the town council are considering. So to get the ball rolling, out of the 10 elements, the two that are probably the most important and in some ways the easiest to deal with are population and economic development. They're the second and third chapters of the comprehensive plan. So with Greg's suggestion, we're going to start with those two first. And I think Greg will speak to this very shortly, but those are areas where the information that is available in the COG really comes to the fore in looking at the historical trends, what the current situation is, and the direction it's likely to take in the next 10 or 15 years or so. So to stop me rambling on indefinitely, Greg, would you like to just say where you are now, what the beginning will consist of, what else you need from us, or with the information that we've provided you so far, have you got enough to start putting that framework together?
Yeah, and so what I'm prepared to do today is I've kind of been, so we've been working, as we discussed, on putting the data and information together for the population and economic elements. And so what I'd hoped to do today was go through, I've got a short presentation that lays out some of that data and information, but I also wanted to leave a lot of time for discussion related to those things so that we can kind of talk through some of the things. You all can share some of the local knowledge that I know you've been getting and discussing with council and other stakeholders. And so that can kind of help us think through, based on the existing conditions information, where we go from here in terms of turning that into tangible goals and objectives.
Greg, before you go any further, Mr. Chairman, Melissa sent a note saying that we had not adopted and approved the agenda.
Oh, she is correct. So let's back up a little bit and go ahead and look at a motion to adopt and approve the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, Ernestine and Melissa. And Melissa, I can't see you or hear you, but do you want to take a roll call, or are you satisfied with a quorum being present?
I'm satisfied. I can see all of your pictures here, and I've made a note of who's here and who's not.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Gregory, go ahead.
No problem. And I guess I didn't look at the agenda. Is this the only thing on the agenda? Because I don't want to take up all your, okay.
Yep.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
so go ahead. Okay, if you all want, I'll just sort of run through some of the data and information for those two elements, and then we can have a little bit further discussion. So keeping in mind that I am well aware of all the work that's going into the strategic planning process. And I think, as I mentioned the last time we were talking, that I think that's a very important part of the comprehensive planning process. So I'm very much interested in doing everything we can to coordinate this process with that process. And that I think the goals and objectives that come out of the strategic plan will really basically be able to roll right into the comprehensive plan. So I've been looking at all the stuff that has come out so far and trying to categorize of all of the goals and objectives that have been put on the table, relating those back to the comprehensive plan elements. So Sarah Lynn, do you want to, am I able to share my screen? Okay. Okay, do you all see the presentation?
Yes.
Maybe it goes back to the comprehensive plan elements. So Sarah Lynn, do you want to, am I able to share my screen? Okay. Somehow I'm getting a delay. Okay. Okay. Can y'all hear it and see everything? Okay. Do y'all see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Does someone have their YouTube video on?
So Sarah Lynn, do you want to, am I able to share my screen?
Yeah, Gregory,
You are. Yep.
Somehow I'm getting a delay.
If you do, please turn it off. I think that's what causes the delay coming back in.
I don't know if Gregory can hear us, but I think he's the one. Gregory, do you have your YouTube going?
I don't. So I was not sure where that's coming back through.
I think if you're going to share your screen, if everybody else will mute theirs, that'll probably help with the delay.
Okay, I'll try again here. Okay. Sarah Lynn, can you see that? Thumbs up. All right. Very good. So I presented this slide the last time, just reintroducing everybody to the planning process and the required elements. And we kind of talked through the whole process and everything that needs to happen to update the comprehensive plan. And I went over the 10 elements, and I just want to remind everybody that per the new state law that was passed last year in September, we now have 10 elements. So it was the previous version of the comp plan had 9 required elements, and now with this new state law or change in state law, we are required to do a resiliency element. And so we'll get around to that one as well. But the ones that we're going to focus on today are the population and the economic development elements. And basically the primary things that we look for in terms of existing conditions are trying to identify growth and development trends, demographic characteristics related to race, ethnicity, age, and gender, various household characteristics, look at income and poverty levels, and educational attainment. And one reason why I think that the population and economic development go well together is if you look at educational attainment, I kind of think of that as a bridge between the two, because it's something that is very important to understand about the population of your community, but is also a very important metric for economic development considerations. So that plays right into identifying labor force or workforce characteristics, looking at average annual wages, occupational and industry employment, unemployment and wage trends. And then this is something where I am going to need some help from you all in identifying the large employers. So I think of this in terms of identifying the economic base of the community, but we really want to have a good idea of who the large employers are operating in and around Blythewood. So I have a working list of that, but it's the data that I get is pulled from a national database. And so when you start going through it, there's always lots of opportunity for improvement. So that's something I want to work with you all on. And I know last time when we did the comp plan, we also inventoried business licenses. So that's something that I want to follow up with Carol and Sarah Lynn and trying to identify over the last maybe 5 years, all of the businesses that have existing business licenses within the town of Blythewood. And then commuting characteristics is also something we think about in terms of economic development, but it's also a good transportation consideration. So I don't have anything in here today related to that, but just knowing that in the data that we've pulled so far, and I think you all probably attest to this, the Blythewood community in general is on average has about the same commute times as the rest of the region. And the workforce is very heavily influenced towards commuting characteristic. I think the average commute time for Blythewood residents is around 21 to 25 minutes. A lot of that really being driven by commutes into and around the Columbia area. So let's start with looking at the growth and development trends. So the interesting thing about when you go back to look at the previous decades of population for a community like Blythewood is that when you look back all the way to the 1980 census, the census population was only 92 people. Now, between 1980 and 2000, those small numbers were really reflective of the fact that the actual footprint of the town, the municipal boundaries, was fairly small as well. And so between 2000 and 2010 is when we started to see a lot of annexation as well as increased rapid growth in residential development in the Northeast Richland area. So when you look at that, you look at the changing municipal boundaries and footprint of the town, coupled with the Northeast Richland area consistently being one of the growth hotspots in the Midlands region, you start to see significant increases in population. So at the 2010 census, the population was 2,034. And when we started working on the 2015 update to the comprehensive plan, that was something I know the town was very concerned about, thinking that perhaps that was a pretty significant undercount. So we tried to come up with a little bit better estimate for that 2015 comp plan. And we looked at building permits and certificates of occupancy that were issued in the town over that 5-year period. And so we actually came up with our own local estimate of 2,900 people. Now, the data, a lot of the data that I'm going to be using and showing you today comes from the most recent 5-year American Community Survey estimate from the Census Bureau. So that is, it says it's a 2019 number, but it is the best available census data that we have right now because it's based on a 5-year average from the previous 5 years. So that population number is about 3,300 people. So that's about where we are in terms of census estimates. It'll be very interesting to see what the number comes out to be when the 2020 population numbers are released. And so we'll be able to get a good look at that, and that could provide a good base for the comprehensive plan moving forward. We won't get all of the 2020 data as we're going through this, but we should at least hopefully get some of the basic numbers that we can use as a baseline or benchmark for moving forward. And the map on the right, I think I showed to you last time. This was and we're in the process of updating this with, we have the 2020 building permits complete now for Richland County. But it just shows you where the residential building permits have been issued in and around Blythewood over that last 10 years. And you get a good sense for where a lot of that residential development has been occurring within the town boundaries and in the areas immediately outside of it. Now, I also showed this last time. This is always a good discussion piece when we're talking about growth and development, but I wanted to bring it back to your attention. This is the 30-year population projections that the COG does about every 5 years. So we are in the process of gearing up to start a new version of this. And so we'll be able to do this once the 2020 data really starts coming out. So we're still a couple years out from having a new 30-year population projections, but this is still a good, even though I think the 2050 projections that we had are probably a little bit high in terms of overall growth for the region, it still gives a really good idea of how the regional breakdown in terms of growth and development will likely unfold over the next 30 years. So the thing to note for Blythewood is that orange color represents the planning sector or subsector of the 4 counties that is really probably going to see the highest share of regional growth over that 30-year period. And part of the reason why is just the fact that it has some of the most undeveloped and developable land available. So as we start to see people continuing to move into the Midlands area, if the trend of new residential development in greenfield areas continues, Blythewood's still going to probably see a large share of that growth. So like a good example to counter that is, and Carol can attest to this, when we were working on the update for the Casey comprehensive plan, Casey's a little bit different. Casey, West Columbia area is a little bit different because for the most part, a lot of those communities are already built out. We do expect to see increased density in residential development over the next 30 years. But because it's largely built out, it's not going to be able to absorb the kind of growth that we think we're going to see over the next 30 years. And then Casey also has a lot of development constraints in terms of wetlands and areas that are flood prone. So Blythewood is on the other end of that spectrum, where there's a lot of open land still available for development, and there's not a whole lot of development constraints. So again, take these numbers with a grain of salt. We had our 2050 regional projections expecting to see about 1.3 million people in the 4-county region, and about 47,000 of those people we would expect to kind of be into that Blythewood sector. So not just the town of Blythewood, but that Northeast Richland area.
So Gregory, as far as the town's concerned, it's a little bit hard to tell from that map, but I keep talking about the Richland County residential development known as Blythewood Farms, which is literally right on the town center, or the original town center district, but is clearly in Richland County. It's not within the boundary of the town, and with something like 700 homes and potentially at least 2 or 3 occupants per home. That's a significant number of people that are not in the town, but essentially will be using the town as their first stop point for shopping, transit, going to work, leisure activities, etc., etc. So just need to be sure that that number is included in your forecasting, because whether they're in the town or not, they're certainly going to influence it.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. And you can probably see so these maps, it's very hard with a lot of the population data and the census data. It's based on a geography that doesn't line up well with municipal boundaries. So it's really hard to see exactly what these maps are showing, these population maps are showing, because this is based on census block groups. So it's a smaller geography than census tracts, but it's still pretty large when you get out into these formerly rural areas. And so it doesn't really give you a whole lot of detail in terms of where the population is. But if you overlay the municipal boundaries, which is that black line, you can see on the population density one, so the town is predominantly low density residential development. So when you look at it just in terms of the population in a particular block group, we're really averaging less than 1 person per acre, which I know that doesn't necessarily translate into the type of residential density that we think of on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. But I think it gives you an overall kind of picture of what the density of residential development is like for most of this area.
Gregory,
yes.
Quick question. Just for sake of questions I've already had as far as the comp plan goes and future questions. So based on what you're describing here, this is not a 29016 footprint. This is not a town of Blythewood footprint. This is more of the density that you're describing by census blocking, correct?
That's correct, yeah. And that was one of the questions I had for you. I think on the last comprehensive plan, we defined an area around the town boundaries that we called our study area. And we tried to pull data for that as well as for the town. And that kind of gave us an idea of as we're talking about population growth and, employment and things like that, we were able to look at, I guess we could think of it as the area of influence for the town. So that's something that we could consider as well. So to this point, I've just tried to zoom out a little bit and to be able to show the areas immediately around, which somewhat follow that study area that we used the last time.
So just to follow up, when we talk about like what Malcolm just brought up, just one neighborhood being Blythewood Farms, but there are others slated just outside the town, or additions in current neighborhoods. I think of Abney Hills, phase 3 is getting ready to go underway. How does the COG account for, do you do it by building permit? How do you account for those single family homes that we know are already slated and on the horizon?
Well, in our population projections, we do try to account for everything that we know of that's in the pipeline. So a lot of those are accounted for in those larger 30-year projections. But for the purposes of the comp plan, I think one of the things that we can do is we need to have a running list of what all of these developments are and to be able to basically pull them out and highlight them in the comp plan to say that we know that these are areas, these are residential developments that are going to be coming online probably in the next 5 to 10 years that are going to add significant population to the area and significant impact on the town services and the surrounding infrastructure. So I think it's just important that we recognize that all those developments in the comprehensive plan.
Yeah. And I think we can do that with, by pooling our knowledge and information. That would be a good thing for a council to have in front of them anyway. So
yeah, and what we can do is I can start with the ones that we know of just in looking at the building permits and sewer permits and that type of thing, and then we could probably work together one-on-one to try to refine that and make sure that we're capturing everything.
Yeah, good.
Okay. So these next two maps, which really relate to data that I'm going to show in a minute, is one of the other things we want to track is poverty levels in low and moderate income households. And so I'll show you the actual numbers that relate to this. But the one that's really important is the low and moderate income from the standpoint of the HUD Community Development Block grants are available to communities that have beneficiaries of 51% or more LMI. So that low moderate income is actually a HUD-derived number and metric. And so that's one of the things that's been that's challenging for the town, because nowhere in the town or around the town do we meet that from the census data. And so the Blythewood, so Richland County is a entitlement district from Community Development Block Grant Program, but the municipalities are not. So the municipality could actually be applying for CDBG projects from the state program. But in order to do so, and this is probably a conversation for another day that I want to have with you all, is we've got to identify projects that could have direct beneficiaries for low and moderate income populations. So just because we're not seeing it on the map as being 51% or more doesn't mean that there aren't eligible projects, but we've got to talk about and think about things that we could do that could have direct benefits to residents that we know meet those income thresholds. So the next thing to talk about, just in terms of demographic characteristics, so the table in the top right shows race and ethnicity. And what I've tried to do for all of these is compare Blythewood to the county and the state as a whole. So for Blythewood, we're about 57.3% white, 38.4% Black or African American, 0.3% American Indian, Alaska Native, 3.5% Asian. We don't have any registering for Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. And then about 2% that identifies as some other race not in those categories. And then 2.5% is Hispanic or Latino of any race. And those are fairly similar to the breakdowns for Richland County in South Carolina in terms of race and ethnicity. We have in terms of gender breakdown, 50.4% male, 49.6% female. And that again is very similar to the gender breakdown between the county and the state. And then the aging population is one that we always try to really make sure we're paying attention to, because that can have a really big impact on planning for the future in terms of whether you've got a young population that you're going to have to try to account for young families in terms of services, or you have an aging population, and we've got to make sure that we're accounting for that, being able to provide services that meet the specific needs of that population as well. And so when you look at, for Blythewood, about 22% of the population is under 18, and 63% is in that range between 18 and 64, and then 16% is 65 and over. And so that is kind of, probably, I guess, where you would expect it to be in terms of Blythewood being bedroom type community for the Columbia area. So a lot of families that are in that age range between 18 and 64. The thing to look out for is that that's where we are today, but we also have to be thinking about the next 10 years out. So we're going to see those age groups continue to shift. And so if you look at the senior population chart to the left of that table there, you'll see that the majority of that 65 and older population is in that 65 to 69 age range. So again, as we move over time into the future, over the next 10 years, you'll see some of that those age cohorts kind of shift to the right. So it's just something to keep in mind. There's a lot of other communities in the region probably have a much more significantly larger aging population than Blythewood does, but it's something that we definitely want to note and be aware of as we move forward. And then just the median age right now, that 2019 data is around 40 years old. In terms of overall household characteristics, the important thing to look at here is the average household size. So for Blythewood, it's 3.14 persons per household. And you can see that is quite a bit bigger than Richland County and South Carolina as a whole. So I think that also speaks to what we saw in the age characteristics, that there being a lot of families in the Blythewood area. So that's just something, another thing to keep in mind as we move forward. The income and poverty. So if you look at on the right side of this slide, you get a breakdown of the percentage of the population that falls within those different income ranges. So a majority of the population in that 50,000 and over income range. So that speaks to the overall average wealth of the community or affluence of the community. The average household income in Blythewood is 135,000, and you can see that is quite a bit higher than the average household income for Richland County and South Carolina. But also, if you look at the poverty levels, it is significantly lower than Richland County and South Carolina, but definitely something that is very important for us to be thinking about in terms of how to address and meet the needs of the population in Blythewood that is below that federal poverty level. So for Blythewood, all people with income below the poverty level for the past 12 months is about 2.2% of the population, and 3.6% receiving households receiving SNAP benefits or food stamps. And then relating back to that HUD low and moderate income metric, for Blythewood, we're at 17.58%. So again, that threshold for being eligible for HUD grants from the census data is 51% or more. So we're significantly below that.
Gregory, sorry to interrupt again, just another thought that entered my head. The Christian Assistance Bridge here, right in the center of Blythewood, provides a lot of support for families in need. And they have really been stretched during the COVID pandemic. And I just wonder if any of their information is relevant in either supporting or expanding this topic, because it is an issue, and those numbers perhaps to me undersell just how bad it has been this last year, 18 months or so. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So is the Christian Assistance Bridge? Okay. And so they're a faith-based organization that provides social services in the community?
Yeah, yeah. They promote themselves as a food pantry,
Okay.
and you know, they appeal to you know, townsfolk to stock up with food and donations, and they're open 2 or 3 days a week. And I hear from them, you know, on a fairly regular basis, just how critical the situation is with some families. So they do a tremendous job in supporting those families in need.
That's a great thought, and we can definitely reach out to them. And that's a very important point you brought up too, because I do a lot of work with food system work, local food system work, and that's something that we've definitely seen as a huge need since the start of the pandemic, is just getting meals and food out there to families that need it. And anytime you talk about job security issues, it also can be directly correlated with food security issues.
Right. Good.
Any other thoughts on any of that so far? Okay, well we'll move in. I'm getting down to the end of just some of this data, and then we can have some more open discussion. But in terms of educational attainment and workforce characteristics, you know, this is sort of that bridge between the population and the economic development. And this kind of goes in line with a lot of the income data that we were looking at. You do see a high percentage, 96% with a high school graduate degree or higher, graduate or professional degrees at 20.6%, bachelor's degree or higher, 51.1%. Those are slightly higher than Richland County numbers and South Carolina numbers as a whole. And when you compare to other communities in the Midlands region, it can be quite significantly higher. So the workforce in terms of the folks that are in the Blythewood community, being able to tap into some of those job sectors that require advanced degrees, it probably relates to a lot of the higher incomes that we're seeing across the area. In terms of employment status, population 16 years and over is at about 2,500 people. And a good majority of those are in the civilian labor force and considered to be employed, so about 70.4%. And then we're only seeing about and I'm not sure about, I'm going to show you some other numbers, because the unemployment numbers in general are kind of hard to get at when you get down to this lower level of geography. So I think it's kind of important to look at so the unemployed in the labor force is at 0.6%, and then unemployment rate, they have at 0.8%. And again, these numbers, though, they're the 5-year averages for the American Community Survey. So they do not take into the impacts from the pandemic. So that's definitely something very important to consider when we're talking about this stuff. So these two metrics, employment by occupation and industry, are kind of related, but the industry one represents, in the census, the kind of business that's conducted by a person's employing agency, and the occupation talks about the kind of work that person does. So the way I look at the occupation one is trying to get a feel for the type of work that people who are employed in the workforce in the Blythewood community are doing. And so the service occupations is at about 23%, and sales and office occupations at 20.3%. So together over 40%, and then adding in that management, business, science, and occupations at 45%. The large majority of the occupations for residents in the area are focused on those types of jobs. And so it is very highly skewed towards white collar type employment. Mm-hmm. On the industry side, again, you can kind of see that the same things reflected with 13.4% of the industry for professional, scientific, and management, and then educational services, healthcare, and social assistance. So those are very broad categories, but it's the best way using the NAICS codes to kind of aggregate it up so you can get a feel for the different sectors that are employing people in the area. And so this one is interesting because this shows you average annual wages for South Carolina, Blythewood, and Richland County. And so the important thing to note, going back to 2009, and the reason I start there is because that's like a good starting point to show where we're really seeing the highest impacts or the peak from the Great Recession. And it shows the level of economic recovery that we have had since then. And this one stops in the first quarter of 2020. So it's not showing the impacts of the pandemic. But it is important to note that Blythewood and Richland County showing average annual wages at pretty significantly higher than the state of South Carolina. So the blue shaded is South Carolina, the blue line is the town of Blythewood, and then the black line is Richland County. So you definitely see the recovery. And then this one shows a seasonally adjusted unemployment rate for South Carolina. So again, I don't have the data at the municipal level, so I have to show it at Richland County level. But it still gives you a really good picture when you're going back to that same time frame of January 2009, where you see the curve going up right where it starts, showing the unemployment dramatically rising as a result of the Great Recession, and then significantly tapering off as we head into January of 2020. And then you see it spike in that between January and July of 2020. And then again, starting to actually come back down. So it'll be interesting when this data is updated to show the last 2 quarters of 2020. It'll be interesting to see how that shows recovery or lack of recovery from the pandemic.
Right.
And so this is the last little bit of data here, but the map shows you the size of employers in the area, and it actually goes beyond the Blythewood limits there. But I just pulled of that database the employers that are within the town limits to give you an idea of within the town limits the ones that really are the largest employers. And I know that those. There's probably you're going to see some in there that you're going to say, what is that, or why is that in there, and it shouldn't be in there. And that's we're trying to clean that up right now. But I've also pulled this same list for the expanded area, which is what's showing on the map, and you see the much larger employers, those greater than 250 employees, businesses popping up around the industrial part. And unfortunately, they don't. This is where the business license data will come in handy as well. As a good way for us to cross-check at least those businesses that are within the municipal limits. And so this is kind of where I wanted to take a few minutes and just have some further discussion. So in terms of opportunities and challenges for future growth, we've already talked about some, and I know that was going to be a topic of discussion, but how do we account for all of this new residential development in Blythewood and the surrounding area? So the Blythewood Farms being one that I know that has come up quite a bit. And then ensuring that, in looking at those developments, that we're closely coordinating with Richland County and Fairfield County. I know the wastewater treatment facility has been a hot topic. And so kind of figuring out how all that's going to play out and what impact that's going to have as well, I think from an economic development and a growth and development standpoint is going to be really important. And then on the community and economic development side, again, thinking about that coordination and the impacts of the industrial park. But also like a lot of the economic development discussion always tends to gravitate towards the recruitment and retention of large employers related to industrial park type development. But I think in a town like Blythewood, it's also really important to pay attention to those small businesses. And so trying to get a good feel for things that the town can be doing to help grow and sustain those businesses, those smaller businesses that are providing important services within the town is something that we should be thinking about. So with that, I just like to, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, maybe have an open discussion about some of those things and get you all's thoughts.
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you very much. I mean, that was quite a wealth of information. So let's see how everybody process that and start some good discussion from it.
I have a question. When you were doing the population and there was a number that was not in the labor force, like 735, would that be retirees, people that just no longer, they're not unemployed, they're just no longer working?
Yeah, that's correct. It can be a wide range of things. Some people who were considered to be part of the labor force, but have since dropped out for whatever reason, they kind of fall into that category. So yeah, it represents the segment of the population that is considered to be not part of the active labor force.
They're not looking for work, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So, Gregory, are you receiving regular updates and input from Richland County on the progress being made with the industrial park? I'm sure that they're talking to somebody, but we're not one of them on the planning commission, so we're not really hearing very much at all about their short-term plans when they actually expect to start clearing the site or identifying the first one or two lots for actual development. I know they are intending to place a business pretty close to Blythewood Road, just to flag the fact that they're there and work is commencing. But I guess I'm being a bit pessimistic in my old age, but I'm just afraid that we're going to start to see things happening, and that'll be the first we know about them. So I just wondered how freely they were providing updates to you or whoever to understand where they were with their construction plans.
Yeah, I don't receive regular updates, but I think it'd be useful I can reach out to their economic development folks and see what information they are able to provide that we could plug into as a part of this planning process. And I can definitely share that back with you all.
Right. Carol, do you hear very much from Jeff Rubel? I mean, he's really the sort of guiding star at Richland County, but you really got to squeeze him hard to get any information out of him.
Well, yes, I think you were at the meeting with the industrial leaders, Chamber of Commerce, that we were both at with them
right
a few weeks ago, and then I had lunch with Tiffany a few days after that, and she did share some just kind of the overall plan of where the roads were, and I think they are going to start clearing some of that out and start getting it ready. And they're also going to, I think, try to find someone like the Urban Land Institute to do a plan for that front part that is town center as sort of a kind of a benefit for the town, really, to kind of give a consultant an opportunity to develop a commercial plan for that area, the zone town center. But on the next planning commission is April 5th, I believe, and I can give you a more concrete update with some maps and things if that's helpful to you. And I'll talk with Tiffany and get the latest on that. But she has been communicating with me.
Right, good.
So they are certainly not hiding things from us.
No, well, like I said, I'm getting a bit cranky in my old age. But something that they were talking about probably 18 months or 2 years ago was to set up a design review committee so that representatives from the town were part of that design development process. And I'm not seeing that happening at all. And you're already saying that they're considering employing professional help with essentially preparing the the front face of that development. So they seem to be dragging their heels on that, and to me it seems to be an ideal opportunity to a two-way exchange of information and helping to keep the town apprised of just where they are, what they're doing, what they're proposing, and whether we're happy with it.
Yeah, how about I plan a more formal update for y'all on the next planning commission meeting, so I can try to answer all the questions you have and give you an update about exactly where they are. And
I'd like that. Yeah, I'm sure my colleagues on the commission would appreciate it as well. Thanks.
Malcolm, Malcolm, you're gonna, two sides of this story. So you watched that industrial park come through the town council. And I think your memory is correct. That they wanted a joint board and some joint input before they started that project, and it certainly looks to me like they are well underway. So,
right. Yeah.
Carol, that'd be great if you could give us an update on that, because clearly that's going to affect the comprehensive plan as potential employers purchase or move or build in that industrial park on Blythewood.
And we know it's going to happen, and we support it. We're certainly not going to try and stop it, but it's helpful to know what's going on and to be prepared for whatever interruptions there are in traffic flow, road improvements, decisions that we make on other planning initiatives and so on. And it's hard when you're behind the 8 ball trying to manage all that, but I know you understand.
Any other questions for Gregory on the slideshow he showed us, or how we can hone this in for moving forward on these 2 sections of the comprehensive plan?
I think that was a very helpful review, Gregory. Every time we go through that exercise, I learn a little bit more. I remember a little bit more. It's extremely helpful, and it shows the value of preparing these comprehensive plans, because there's no one that can hold all that information in their head. So at least it's documented and recorded and kept up to date, and is a very valuable reference document just for that purpose alone.
I think it is helpful to kind of caveat there and touch on the stakeholder survey that everybody has seen and looked at, and what Sarah Lynn has put together. Gregory, after seeing your presentation, I'm more convinced than ever we're going down the right road with kind of the net we're casting for the stakeholder survey. We are certainly not looking just at the town limits of Blythewood. nor are we looking at just the property that's contiguous to the town limits. We're more casting the net to the 29016 zip code, which according to all the figures I watched you use, and kind of the block census information, I think we're casting the net in the right direction as far as the survey goes, and who we're asking the questions and the participation we're looking for.
And interestingly enough, Richland County Council taking a leaf out of our book, because they've just announced they're going to be doing a neighborhood survey themselves. So we're obviously becoming trendsetters here in Blythewood.
Malcolm,
So
anything else for Gregory? Gregory, do you need anything else, or other members of the Planning Commission that are on the call?
No, I don't think so at this time. I will, I'll catch up with Carol and we can talk about some of the other data pieces that I know I want to try to get updated. And I think for the next one, I've been working on the natural and cultural resources and the housing elements. So we'll try to get as far on those three as we can at the next meeting. And that should get us a pretty good progress.
yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Carol, just one item of housekeeping. When is the town council agenda set for next Monday's meeting? Is that set today or later on this week?
We shoot for Wednesday, but the questionnaire is on there. But would you like to?
And can we ask the mayor maybe to put, and I don't know where you and I can talk kind of on a side conversation, but about a funding request for the survey, just so we know that that's taken care of as we're going to try to kick this off before. It would be clearly after the upcoming council meeting, but before the April council meeting.
That's right. Yeah. So I think it would be good for us to get together and figure out the costs associated with that, so we can go ahead and get their approval on that. Sarah Lynn has got we went ahead and got the Survey Monkey going, obviously, but the mail out and everything. So we need to crunch those numbers and have that ready. So I'll talk with you about it. Are you available? We can talk
Sure.
about it tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, just shoot me a text and we'll get on the phone together.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Well, everybody who's joined on a Monday night that we usually don't meet, I certainly appreciate it. I know everybody has multiple things they could be doing besides being on a Zoom call, but great information. Gregory, thank you very much for putting it together, and look forward to the next session.
Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you, Gregory.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory.
Any other comments or concerns before we take a motion to adjourn? All right, if there are none, will somebody please make a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second.
We got a motion and a second, third, and a fourth. So all in favor say aye.
Uh-huh.
Any opposed? Okay, guys, thank you very much. Look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Appreciate it.